Welcome to the Beehive. Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. Today we are looking at Beyonce and Jay-Z and analyzing their relationship. Now, when I did my breakdown analysis of the Taylor-Travis relationship, I had a lot of requests to talk more about some very popular celebrity couples, and Jay-Z and Beyonce was overwhelmingly the request I got. Actually, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard is the request I got, but I feel like a lot of people really want me to talk about them. I don't know that much about their relationship. I really tried to stay out of that whole situation, and I feel like everybody's kind of over that at this point, so I don't know if people really want that, but I know people really request that. The second most popular one was to talk about Beyonce and Jay-Z. This is a requested video. I'm not making this video as a hit piece. Before we get started, a disclaimer that I have every time I talk about celebrity couples that I want to remind everybody is that when I talk about celebrities or celebrity couples, I don't know them personally. So none of this information is like insider knowledge. None of this information is based on personal information I have of them. I have no idea what these celebrities are like behind closed doors. And the reality is, neither do you. I'm solely basing my analysis of celebrities and their relationships on the public information, like information that is given to us in the public. So this is simply based on the public perception and their public image. What they are like behind closed doors, I have no idea. Like, I really don't. But the reason I like to analyze celebrities' relationships is because what we are presented in the media in Hollywood has a greater effect on us than we know. Even if we think of ourselves as people who don't look up to celebrities or don't emulate celebrity relationships, a lot of the stuff that we see, and this goes for like stuff that's established fiction, like movies, TV shows, commercials, things like that, as well as reality stuff of celebrity interactions and things like that, of like the public perception of celebrity couples. It affects our society. I mean, you could debate, is this art imitating life or life imitating art? But the reality is that celebrities in Hollywood and the media do set the tone for society, even if we as individuals try to avoid it. I do get a lot of pushback sometimes from people who, when I talk about celebrities or the media or things, are like, well, we shouldn't be looking to celebrities as role models. And I absolutely agree with that statement. However, society as a whole is more easily influenced by celebrities and the media than we even know. It's really not that difficult in order to manipulate people's perceptions of things. So in talking about celebrity couples or celebrity relationships, I am fully aware that these are adults we're talking about, and that these celebrities are probably not going to watch this analysis and are probably not going to take this relationship advice to heart or anything, or that anything I say is going to have any effect on these celebrity couples in any way. I'd be honored if it did, but I'm sure that that's not going to happen. However, I believe that the first defense against being manipulated or influenced by what we see in the media, what celebrities present to us, what Hollywood is selling us, is awareness. Being aware of what we are being sold and how it may not really be fully accurate, or we may be interpreting it wrong or not in the healthiest way to relate it to our own lives. Which was my point with the Taylor and Travis video, which got a lot of pushback from people. But, you know, I've noticed a lot of things like in the Taylor-Travis relationship of people projecting their own ideas and their own vision of a relationship onto them. And I've noticed this a lot with, you know, every celebrity couple. So I thought Jay-Z and Beyonce, because they are kind of a hot topic right now, this would be a good time to talk about their relationship. Again, I'm talking about their public persona and what we are seeing of them, so that people have more awareness of what we are being sold and what the image is, so that, you know, we can enjoy people's music, we can enjoy movies, TV, we can enjoy the media and entertainment. We can also understand and have an awareness of the difference between the entertainment and the reality. Because the reality is that most celebrities, everything they present to us is part of the entertainment. It's not real. As much as it's really big nowadays for people to see like the real celebrity or like the real person, everything is cultivated to present to us a certain image. And Jay-Z and Beyonce are a perfect example of that, because they are completely curated. Everything that they do and that they present to us is curated, and it's obvious that it is. I think in other celebrities it's less obvious, but with Jay-Z and Beyonce, everything we are sold is perfectly curated to fit a certain image. And we know that. They don't really show us much of their like real life, which is unusual nowadays, even though other celebrities are selling us reality that probably isn't reality. Jay-Z and Beyonce are kind of like unapologetically just not showing us reality. I'm not making this as a video to hate, and I realize that there are going to be people out there who are so hardcore Beyonce fans that anything negative about her is going to seem like a personal attack. I would encourage you, if you are that much of a rabid fan of someone that you believe that questioning a celebrity's character is a personal attack on you, I would look at that from within yourself. I really would, because that's not really a healthy place to be in. These celebrities are humans that have been put in a certain position of influence, but they are not immortal. And I'm not someone who likes the idea of going on and just bashing and shaming people for no reason or whatever. But if you are someone who takes someone questioning a celebrity so personally that it just enrages you, I would just invite you to take a look at that, because that's not really a healthy mindset to be in. Probably it's a deflection from you not having to deal with things in your own life, and I would just encourage you to deal with what you need to deal with in your own life before you spend so much time investing in trying to like rapidly protect or defend a celebrity that you don't know, who, to be fully honest with you, and I know it's hard for some people to hear this celebrity would not defend you. They don't really care about you that much. You're a dollar sign to them. And I don't say this to say that these celebrities don't like care about their fans or don't like want good things for their fans. I'm sure some of them do, but at the end of the day, you're a paycheck to them. That might be hard to hear for some of you, I understand. And there are some celebrities who just genuinely want to share their art and want to be performers and things like that. I'm not saying that all celebrities are bad people, but at the end of the day, people who are so rabidly devoted to and dedicated to any celebrity whatsoever, I really think it's a distraction or deflection from them dealing with what they need to deal with in their own life. And I would encourage you to just deal with what you need to deal with in your own life, because you're worth it. You're worthy of that. You're worthy of working on yourself and not devoting your entire life to somebody else who you don't even know and who doesn't know you and would not defend you to that level. So that's a whole conversation in itself, but I do know that there are a lot of hardcore Beyonce fans, so I just really felt like I wanted to touch on that. Beyonce, for me personally, and again, I remember when she kind of came on the scene and got popular with Destiny's Child. So, you know, I've kind of followed her popularity over the years. I've never like not liked Beyonce or not liked Beyonce's music, but there's always been a disconnect for me. And I think the first time I really realized why there was a disconnect was because she was so big, especially when she was first with Destiny's Child. And, you know, she had their big song like Independent Woman, and so much of the music that they were making was really geared towards like, I don't need a man, I'm independent, I got my own money, I got my own, that kind of thing. Like, that was her image, which was a very popular thing at the time, this idea of being like an independent woman and not needing a man. And whether or not you think that's a good message is completely debatable. However, when you actually look at Beyonce's career, Beyonce was part of Destiny's Child, which was originally a four-woman female pop group that Beyonce was kind of the star of. And then originally two girls left, they brought in another girl, so it was like a three-girl group. Beyonce's group, Destiny's Child, was managed by Beyonce's father. He was their manager. He ended up leaving his job and becoming full-time and being their manager and basically managing their career. And Beyonce's mom, who ran a successful hair salon, was like the stylist of Destiny's Child and the girls and things like that, right? So Beyonce's parents were heavily involved in Beyonce's career and molding their career, which I'm not criticizing. However, there's a real disconnect there from a woman coming on and basically singing about like not needing a man, being an independent woman, getting it on her own, when her daddy was running her career. Again, I think an active, involved father who is, you know, wants to help his daughter achieve success and a dream, if that's really what she wanted to do, I'm not criticizing that. However, there's a disconnect between that idea of like, I don't need no man, and my daddy is managing my career. Because technically, she kind of did need a man to manage her career. And she has a career because she had a man who was her father, not her romantic partner, but was her father, who was essentially helping her with her career. And you cannot use the argument, I've heard this argument way too often over the course of my life in the entertainment industry and stuff, is that you can't say, well, she would have made it on her own even without him, because we don't know that, because she never experienced not having her father as her manager when she came up in the business. So you can't make the argument that, well, she would have been famous anyway, because we don't know that. And I know there's a lot of people who are going to say that, well, no, because she's so talented, she would have made it anyway. Talent has nothing to do with people who make it in the entertainment business. I hate to break it to you. Are there people who are famous in the entertainment business that are very talented? Yes, absolutely. But the way the entertainment business works, like coming from somebody who's been behind the scenes in the entertainment business, talent is such a minute fraction of what makes someone a success. And I don't say this to like dismiss Beyonce's talent or dismiss Beyonce as a performer or anything like that, but talent is not the thing that makes you famous. Talent might be the thing that might like kind of get your foot in the door and might get you noticed, but it doesn't make you famous. So Beyonce's father basically helped get her career, but yet she was promoting this idea of like not needing a man. Now, I realize that there's a difference between like relying on a husband to take care of you and having a supportive father who's by your side, but it's still a man. It's still a man in your life who is there to support you. So the message that she was promoting and her real life wasn't really lining up. And that is going to be a very consistent theme throughout Beyonce's life, that the music that she promotes and the things that we do know about her life, because she is very private, and you know, I'm not criticizing her for that, but what we do know about her life and what her music is presenting, there's usually a disconnect there. And that's not to say that her music can't be catchy, that it, you know, it can't be, you know, memorable, or you can't want to like get up and dance when her music comes on, but there's going to be a disconnect there because people are gonna pick up on things not being real. As humans, we have like an inner detector, particularly for women, we have an inner detector that kind of tells us like, something's off, even if we don't know why it's off. And Beyonce is very much like that. There's a disconnect there between what we know about her as a person and the music that she presents, which in a lot of people's minds is going to separate us from being completely immersed in it. I'll get into Beyonce and Jay-Z a little bit later, but like, has anybody ever listened to Beyonce doing a song about love or sex or anything and ever thought that she was really talking about Jay-Z? Like, did anybody hear Crazy in Love and actually think, oh, Beyonce is so head over heels in love with Jay-Z? Those two have no chemistry whatsoever. The stuff that she's talking about doesn't feel real. You're not imagining that she's actually like that in love with her husband or that turned on by her husband, because like they don't have that chemistry. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing to either one, and I'm going to dive into their relationship in a minute, but there's a disconnect there. There's just something that's like, this doesn't feel authentic to us as people. So even if we're like, yeah, I love this song is fun, and I love Beyonce, and I love her image, and I love her performance, and I love her, you know, her voice, her presentation, her dance moves, her everything, there's something about it that's like, something's missing there. There's something that's not quite right there. And I don't love to compare Beyonce and Taylor Swift because they get compared too often, and I don't love pitting women against each other. They kind of have the fate of being the two most successful musicians in the industry right now. And because they're both women, they're naturally getting compared to each other. We would do that less if it was two men that were on top, but that's a whole other situation. But the thing with Taylor Swift is most of her music, her presentation, because her biggest strength is her lyricism. Her music always felt like it was probably her reality at the time she wrote the music. It was very much like, you're like, okay, she's falling in love. She's writing an album about falling in love. We get it. It makes sense. Like, we can see her and feel her actually feeling the things that she's writing and expressing. Love her or hate her, whatever you have to say about her, it feels more authentic. It feels like what she's writing about is actually the things that she's going through or the things that she's observing in her life. Whereas Beyonce, there's always a disconnect there. There's something there that's preventing us from seeing what she's talking about as being her reality. She married Jay-Z and then came out with Single Ladies. And like, if you liked it, then you would put a ring on it. Well, I mean, who doesn't love Single Ladies, right? It's a great song. But she's also a married woman now. At that stage, she's writing a song about essentially being willing to walk away from a guy if he doesn't marry her while she's a married woman. Disconnect, right? Disconnect from what we know of her reality. We know she's married now. She ends up becoming a mom. She ends up starting to get a lot edgier with her music, which, you know, as she got older and as she got more mature, her music shifted and changed. It got more edgy, it got more sexual. More power to her for, you know, deciding she wanted to go in that direction. However, did anybody really think that any of those sexy songs were about Jay-Z? I mean, really, because the two of them don't really have like a chemistry, at least not publicly. There's something about their relationship that just does not put us in the mindset of like that they're actually that kind of couple that's like so in love and is like has so much sexual chemistry. Some people may argue, I've never seen it, and I'll get into them in a minute. Then she comes out with Lemonade, which personally I think Lemonade was probably her strongest album. But basically in the album she's talking about being cheated on. So she's essentially confessing that Jay-Z has been unfaithful. The problem with that is, and I know a lot of people have argued that that album was not about accusation, it was about forgiveness. I don't really get that from that album, but you know, like she has a line in that album where it's like, you know, my baby and I are gonna be all right or something like that. The problem with that is she didn't leave. I'm not one to tell anybody when to end their relationship. It has to be your own decision whether or not you decide to end your relationship, what in your relationship you're willing to put up with, what you're not, where your boundaries are, and what your limitations are as far as, you know, anything really, but particularly infidelity and things like that. It's your decision. However, for Beyonce to come out with an album and she has presented herself or tried to present herself as this like strong, independent woman, and now she's like, this man has wronged me and I'm strong enough, I can get through this on my own, and like this is how she's presenting herself, but we know she stays with this man, which weakens the position, right? Like publicly as an image, like we know that this man has now disrespected you, we know this man has hurt you, and you chose to stay with him. Her decision, but she made this our business, and now she's making a decision to continue in this relationship. It does make us perceive her, right or wrong, it makes us perceive her as weaker. It makes us perceive her as, okay, but she didn't leave. Like she's not really that strong, independent woman that she's been presenting to us because she didn't step up and walk away. She's been telling us she could walk away. She could walk away from, I mean, you know, back in the day with the to the left, and she was a strong, independent woman. Now she's like, okay, this man wronged me, but she's staying. It doesn't fit with the presentation that she has always given us about I'm an independent woman and I don't need a man. Because now it's like, okay, then why would you stay with a man who is mistreating you? Why would you stay with a man who is obviously hurt you and doesn't respect you the way that you deserve to be respected? Again, it's her decision what she chooses to do, but it is going to change our perception of her and particularly of their relationship. So she can't just go back and now make music about being in love with her man or sing songs about being in love with her man, because we know their relationship isn't good. She's told us their relationship isn't good. She's choosing to stay with him, so now we're like, okay, well, now we don't believe you're in love with him. We don't believe you're attracted to him because we already know he's hurt you. So again, there's a continuous disconnect between Beyonce's music, her entertainment side, and her personal life, which is curated. I mean, her personal life, I mean, Beyonce and Jay-Z don't share candid moments. Like they don't share personal stuff, which again is their choice. Like I'm not telling them that they have to, but it's all curated and they're trying to make it seem like they're a great couple. But then in the music, they're really selling us something different. Now, Beyonce's career and her image and her public image and the way that she's come to rise to fame is interesting because I know that her parents, the way that her mom was styling her and her father was managing her, they were very much taking Diana Ross and the Supremes as inspiration. Makes sense. We're talking about, you know, an iconic figure, and it's absolutely acceptable to have role models and people that you look up to and people that you try to emulate. But it's interesting because I actually, as I was, you know, getting ready to talk about this video, I actually went back and I watched Dreamgirls. Now, if any of you aren't familiar with Dreamgirls was a musical that they made into a movie. It's actually the second time they made it into a movie, but the original musical was essentially based on Diana Ross's life and her rise to fame in this girl group, and they made it into a movie and Beyonce played essentially the Diana Ross character. The Dreamgirls movie is an amazing movie. They promoted it as Beyonce's movie because they were trying to get her an Oscar. It's Jennifer Hudson's movie. Plain and simple. I will just say that about Dreamgirls. This isn't a review of Dreamgirls, but Dreamgirls is Jennifer Hudson's movie, hands down. I would say Jennifer Hudson and Eddie Murphy stole that movie. They were trying to make it into like a Beyonce Jamie Foxx movie because they were like the biggest names at the time, but like that movie 100% was Jennifer Hudson's movie. But Beyonce was playing the Diana Ross role. And I went back and rewatched the movie the other night just to like prepare for this. And I had this realization that Beyonce's career was not only inspired by Diana Ross, but it was almost an exact replica, and that Beyonce's life has modeled the Dreamgirls movie eerily close. Like, it was almost like watching Dreamgirls now and thinking about the Beyonce Jay-Z relationship. It was like weird. It was crazy how similar and how many parallels that there are there, to the point where, I mean, whether it's art imitating life or life imitating art, I don't know. Like, whether this is it was designed that way, or it just happened that way, or whether or not people were modeling something else. I don't really know exactly like the actual thought process behind this, but like, it's freaky. Jamie Foxx's character in Dreamgirls that was trying to make himself into this like legitimate music mogul, but he was involved in a lot of criminal activity along the way. He was working his way up from nothing. He meets Beyonce's character when she's basically underage, and essentially falls for her and makes her his star. It kind of lures her out of a girl group that makes her the star, and manages her career and micromanages her career. And she's put up on the pedestal as this wife, and he's becomes this mogul, but he's kind of still involved in some criminal activity. Basically Beyonce and Jay-Z's story, which again, I don't know enough about Diana Ross's like real life history. I haven't really dived into her actual story enough to know how much Dreamgirls actually was based on Diana Ross's life. Like, I know it was supposed to be a story about her life. I don't know exactly how much it parallels, but the Dreamgirls story and Beyonce's life are eerily similar. Like, it's weird, and I encourage any of you, I mean, it's a great movie, so if you want to watch the movie, watch it, but like, you can't unsee it. Like, you cannot unsee the comparison between Beyonce's life and her role in Dreamgirls. It's crazy how similar it was. But to be honest, it's hard for me to imagine that her relationship with Jay-Z is any different than what they're showing her in the movie, because like, there's so many parallels. Again, I don't really know this for sure, but there's so many parallels in this situation. I also understand why her family, Beyonce's family, when they were managing her career, they were presenting her as a very Diana Ross-esque character, very high glam, and it made sense because Beyonce does, I think, and I think this is natural. And maybe she's been conditioned to be like this, I don't know, but it does feel authentic to me that Beyonce tends to carry herself in a very regal way, which is why she's known as the Queen Bee, right? She does have a very regal queen-like quality about her. And it kind of got me thinking about the fact that I didn't realize how young Beyonce was when she first got together with Jay-Z. Again, I'll get to their relationship in a minute, but it got me thinking about the fact that I've never thought about Beyonce as being young. And I'm not age shaming her by any means, but the way she was presented to us, even from the beginning, was always as this very like grown-up queen-like woman. Whereas a lot of the other pop stars were getting presented to us as kind of like these like little girlish personalities, you know, the Britney Spears, the Christina Aguileras, like they were Miley Cyrus, like in different time periods and for some of these, but it's kind of like you get presented as this kind of like bad little schoolgirl, then they become this sexualized woman. And for Beyonce, she was always presented as this very regal woman who you always felt like, even when looking back on it, she was actually still a girl. Like, she was actually about the same age as some of these girls that they were presenting as these like cutesy little schoolgirls. They were presenting her as more of a woman. So it's interesting because her getting together with Jay-Z, I think at the time, I remember them getting together, not registering that there was as big an age gap because she carried herself so mature, which again is a dangerous thing to get into. And as much as I don't like exploiting the little girl thing and making that into a fetish, like even when these girls are legal adults, there is also a grooming tactic of convincing a woman and the world that she's so much older than she is to make it look like you're not the creepy old man that's manipulating her, right? I don't like to bring race into these situations because I don't think this is solely a racial thing. There are people who are obviously going to make the argument that it's because Beyonce's a black woman and so they decided to present her as a more mature adult. And I would say though that, again, I don't like getting into race and I don't even know if I'm someone who even should be talking about that, but when you look at say like Britney Spears or Miley Cyrus or something, the way they presented them as young pop stars was like, it was the cutesy girlish, like I'm so innocent as a schoolgirl, but now I'm gonna be raunchy and bad and type of thing. But like Aaliyah and Rihanna, you know, being women of color, were presented a little bit differently, but it was still that like schoolgirl kind of attitude of like being the young girl, of kind of being a little bratty. And when I say bratty, I don't say that in a negative way, but I just mean like kind of like that rebellious teenager kind of thing. So it was presented differently. So I will acknowledge that there is a difference in the way they were presenting white pop stars and the way they were presenting black pop stars. However, with Beyonce, I think it was just a different category. Her team, her people were always trying to emulate her as this kind of like old Hollywood second coming of Diana Ross kind of a person. So they kind of like were skipping over the little girl aspect and kind of like presenting her to us as a woman. On the one hand, I'm not mad at necessarily, but I'm also, it's kind of a conflict, because on the one hand, the idea of presenting us with like these women who are kind of acting like children as like a fetish thing is disturbing, but also taking somebody who's very young and trying to present her as this older woman is also concerning. So, I mean, you could make an argument that, I mean, everything in Hollywood is kind of perverted, but I just noticed that as a difference, that with Beyonce, she was always presented to us as this very regal queen-like character. Not a criticism, it was just, it was different than how we were being presented other pop stars. And one thing I will say, because again, I don't like pitting Taylor and Beyonce against each other, but I have noticed that there is a similarity in that, well, Taylor was definitely promoted as being the little girl, although she was kind of like the good girl, not the bad girl of like your Britney Spears, your Miley Cyrus, or whatever. The thing I've always admired about Taylor Swift is the fact that she has matured and grown up gradually. She never had that moment of like in your face, like I'm just gonna hit you over the head with my sexuality. Like they kind of had to do with Britney, and like they had to do with Miley, or, you know, Christina, or things, because they were like, okay, we have to tell everybody aggressively that we have gone from being a girl to a woman, and the way that we have to do that is by over-sexualizing. The thing that I've always liked about Taylor Swift is that she has gradually matured with her audience. So like, I think back to music that she made like, you know, 10 years ago or something, and I'm like, I don't necessarily listen to that and resonate with that as much now, but I did back then, even though Taylor's a little bit younger than me. But you know, I did back then at that time period because it was a different mindset. Whereas like some of the stuff she makes now, I enjoy listening to now because it represents a different time period. I think Taylor has done a really great job of growing and maturing with her audience, and as she grew with age, grew with wisdom, presenting sexuality and things like that has come at a more gradual pace, as opposed to her having that moment of like, I'm just gonna hit you over the head with being a sex queen or something like that. Beyonce presented herself as a very regal character, so she never had that little girlish quality to her that a lot of other pop stars had. She did keep her material clean, and then it subtly evolved into being a little bit more edgy, a little bit more sensual, and then she started to get more into like the edgier, raunchier stuff. So I do also like the way that Beyonce has kind of shifted and evolved, and I will admit, during her, I would say like her Beyonce album, her Drunken Love years, it did start to feel a little bit like she was like hitting us over the head with her sexuality. And that was after she had Blue. So in that time period, that idea of like, I'm a new mom and I need to prove my sexuality was actually very common. I don't know if it's actually eased up or not, or I'm just noticing it less, but there was a big trend around that time period of women who were new moms now feeling like they had to prove that they're still sexy. So I started to feel like those years were a little bit forced, but again, she had grown and matured with her audience, and it was kind of, her music was building up to be a little bit more sensual, a little bit more sexual, and then she kind of went over that hurdle with something like Drunken Love. Now, I still stand by the fact that I really don't believe that any of that music really felt like she was feeling super sexy, and especially not super sexy with Jay-Z. Like, I still think it felt forced. My observation, in my opinion. Some of you might not feel that way. But I do understand, especially because we do live in a society where, I actually was reading this book about women and sexuality and things like that, and there was a woman who was talking about how like in many other cultures, like outside of the United States, a woman having a child is actually like seen as very sexual, because it's proof that she is a sexual being. She's obviously had sex in order to have that child. Whereas in America, in our culture, a woman becoming a mother diminishes her sexuality, which is a weird thing because it literally is evident that she is a sexual being because she has had a child. And in American culture, we also don't diminish a man's sexuality when he has a child. So it's, you know, that's a whole other conversation, but I do think that it's interesting and fair to note that she did start trying to really try to hit us over the head with like the sexuality and the raunchiness after she had a baby as a sort of way of proving that she was still a sexy woman. I don't think she needed to do that, but, and this is gonna get into the psychology here, but I've always thought it interesting because her Beyonce album, you know, Drunken Love, Partition, all that kind of stuff, was very much like, I'm gonna be sexual for my man. And again, I'm not knocking that mentality, but the fact that she did this whole album about like being really sexy for her man and loving to turn her man on, which I still never bought that was about Jay-Z, but whatever. And it was this whole thing about like being sexy for her man. And then her next album was Lemonade, about how her man was cheating on her, which, again, we don't know what actually happened in their personal life at all. However, it really felt like the presentation of that was like, okay, so you can literally be Beyonce, totally sexually willing and open and trying desperately to like please your man sexually, and he's still gonna cheat on you. That's what those two albums said to me. Like in my mind, I'm like, oh, so you can literally be like a sexually turned on Beyonce and your man is still gonna cheat on you. And I actually would question, again, this is totally speculation, I don't know. I would almost wonder if some of the reason that she felt like she needed to prove her sexuality after having a baby, after having Blue, was because she knew Jay-Z was cheating on her and she was like, I desperately want him to pay attention to me and not other women, so I'm gonna try to become the sex symbol that he wants in order to win him back. And that Lemonade became the album of like, okay, I just have to accept the fact that he's cheated on me and I can't do anything else about it. Again, this is all just speculation, I don't know, but like from a psychological perspective, one of the reasons why a woman would feel a need to desperately like prove her sexuality and prove it to a man, and like Drunken Love to me did feel very performative for a man. Again, I'm not discouraging people. I think having a healthy sex life is essential to having a good, strong romantic connection with a partner, and I'm not diminishing that at all. But if either person in the relationship feels like they need to prove their sexuality, or they need to force themselves into being sexually available or being sexual for a partner to keep a partner, and this goes both ways for men or women, but if you feel the need to desperately try to please your partner sexually in order to keep their attention or keep their love, that's not a healthy situation. And to be honest, it's gonna burn you out, like because you're now disconnecting sexuality from yourself. And again, I'm not saying she did this or she didn't. This was my interpretation of this, and that was why I think Drunken Love was like the Beyonce album and the Drunken Love years and stuff felt, again, it felt forced because it didn't feel, to me at least, like this was Beyonce's expression of sexuality. It felt very like, I'm performing this for my man because I need male validation. Again, not saying that having a healthy sex life with your man is not an important thing, absolutely. And I know there's gonna be a lot of guys who are gonna be like, why is it wrong for a woman to want to please me sexually? And well, if a woman is showing up because she's desperate to try to please you sexually, she's not enjoying herself sexually, and eventually she's not going to have sex with you anymore because she's going to get tired of constantly trying to please you sexually and her never getting anything in return. Because as I've said before, in masculine feminine dynamics and sexual polarity, the masculine gives, the feminine receives. That's literally our biology. The masculine has something to give, the feminine is the one who opens and receives. If you're constantly in this place as a feminine where you feel like you need to give sexually to a man, you're in the masculine role, and he's the one that's always receiving, he's in the feminine role, and eventually you're gonna lose attraction for each other. That's just the way it works. I'm not here to dive into sexual polarity all that deeply, but this is just my interpretation of the way that things were happening. I have always felt like the fact that Beyonce would come out with this album of being like, I want to sexually please a man, and I want to be sexy for my husband, I want to sexually please my husband, and then the next album she comes out with is like, okay, my man cheated on me. It sends a message. Like, it sends a message to people. And whether you want to send the message or whether you don't, it sends a message to people. I gotta be honest, like, it sent a message to me of like, okay, I'm not gonna spend my time trying to please a man sexually because he's just gonna cheat on me. And in her case, that's what happened. But, you know, I mean, we don't know if that's really what happened, but that's what she was presenting to us as the reality based on her music. I don't have a problem with her coming out with a country album. I don't know if it's going to be good. I don't know if it's not. I haven't really heard much of it. She's from Texas. She wants to do a crossover and she wants to go country. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, on her Lemonade album, Daddy Lessons, I think, I remember thinking that like, oh, that's Beyonce doing country, and I think it's actually pretty good. I worry though that this isn't Beyonce trying to compete with Taylor, because Taylor was country and then she became pop, and I feel like Beyonce has been chasing Taylor, and I wish that Beyonce would stop chasing Taylor and she would just be her. And this is going to be kind of controversial for some people that I think are maybe not going to like what I'm about to say, but Beyonce is trying to turn herself now into a Kardashian. When I saw Beyonce on the red carpet at her movie premiere, it was like her concert movie premiere, and I was like, oh my god, she turned herself into Kim Kardashian. Like, she looks more like Kim Kardashian than she does Beyonce. And then her at the Super Bowl, people were showing some pictures of her, and I was like, oh my god, I thought that was Kylie Jenner, and it's Beyonce. And I know some people are saying that she's whitewashed and whatever, and I'm not getting into that aspect. Beyonce feels now like, 'cause when Kim was with Kanye, it really felt like Kim was trying to chase Beyonce. Like, she was trying to chase this image of Beyonce and like be like Beyonce. And it feels now like Beyonce is kind of trying to chase Kim and Kim's image. And I don't think she needs to. It feels to me now like Beyonce is trying to chase people who are beneath her when she's not owning right now that she is Beyonce. I realize that, like, okay, Kim's a billionaire now. Kim has made a name for herself, but like Beyonce is still Beyonce. And I'm seeing a trend. I don't think it's just Beyonce that's doing this, but I am seeing a trend where there's a lot of celebrities who are trying to chase and emulate people that are beneath them. And I don't mean beneath them as humans or anything like that, but I mean like as far as celebrity land. Like, Kim Kardashian is famous, she's successful, she has a lot of money, she has no talent whatsoever. Beyonce at least has some talent. Beyonce is Beyonce. Beyonce doesn't really have peers or people she's competing with. I mean, it's kind of like her and Taylor, but they're very different. Like, even though they're both at the top of the music game, they're very different for different reasons, and I don't think that they should be trying to be each other. I'm not saying that if Beyonce authentically wanted to come out with a country album, because she is from Texas, she has a lot of Southern Belle qualities to her. I think that is part of her regal queen-like quality. So I wouldn't hate on her for making a country album. I can't help but feel like this is just another strategic career move. Whereas if she really just authentically wanted to come out with a country album because she wanted to get back to her Texas roots or something like that, like, more power to her. I think that'd be great. I think she could be great at it. I feel like this is just going to be another strategic move. And this goes back to Beyonce and Jay-Z at the Grammys. You know, Jay-Z basically saying that Beyonce's #1 album of the year. Beyonce's won more Grammys than anybody else. She just hasn't won album of the year. And there's a real sense of she's bitter because she didn't win this one award, but she's won so many other awards, and she's Beyonce. And her obsession with that award she hasn't gotten yet. And I think what it is it's causing her to be very strategic and very like, okay, I'm gonna create an album, or I'm gonna do something just to get this one award that I haven't gotten. And she's not actually sitting back and appreciating, like, look, I'm Beyonce. Like, I'm Beyonce, people, and not owning that she's Beyonce and looking for, well, what haven't I gotten yet? That's forcing her to try to compare herself to other people and try to compete with other people that are not actually her competition. Her competition should really just be her trying to top herself because she's Beyonce, for God's sakes. I think she's getting caught up in this, okay, well, Kim's getting all this attention and Kim's got this look and Kim's got this image. I think she's trying to kind of emulate Kim, which I don't think she should. You know, or like Kylie, or, you know, Let's Go Country, and kind of backtrack to where Taylor came from, maybe get some of Taylor's old fans on my side or something, when it's like, she doesn't need to do that. But I feel like, and I don't think she's the only celebrity that's doing that, but I think there are a lot of celebrities that are feeling like they have to try to compete with people who are kind of like beneath them on the celebrity totem pole to get attention and to get fans, when it's like, all she really needs to do is be Beyonce and be the best Beyonce she could ever be. And I think she's getting too caught up in comparing herself to other people and like, well, why don't I have this, or why don't I have this particular award, and not being like, I'm Beyonce, damn it, like, I can have whatever I want, I can be at the top of my game. Doesn't matter if I win this award or if I win that award, I'm just gonna go out and I'm just gonna be the best damn Beyonce that I can be. And I feel like she would be much more relatable to people now, because I think a lot of people are looking at her like, oh, so you have more Grammys than anybody else, but you're mad and bitter that you just don't have that one Grammy. I don't know if it's just her, if it's just Jay-Z being particular about it, but it does have this feeling about like, they have all this money, success, and fame. They're still just bitter about that one thing that they didn't get, that they thought that they should have gotten, when it's like, well, look at everything you have. And in the world that we're in right now, with, you know, the economy being so bad and, you know, people having trouble putting food on the table and things being so expensive and inflation and everything, I think a lot of people at home are watching people like Jay-Z and Beyonce and being like, wow, look at all that you have and you're not grateful for it. Regular people at home, the consumer, are looking at that and saying like, well, look at my life. I don't have nearly what you have and you're still bitter and angry that you don't have more. The more that the economy shifts and the more that people are struggling, the more of a disconnect they're gonna have with celebrities who have everything and are just bitter about that one thing they don't have. And I think that's gonna be a big issue for Beyonce and Jay-Z and a lot of other celebrities that are similar to them moving forward, because of just the way that our economy is going right now. It's going to cause an even bigger disconnect between celebrities and like regular people. Okay, so let's talk Beyonce and Jay-Z. I did not realize the age gap between Beyonce and Jay-Z. I'm hearing different numbers from people as to what the age situation actually was when they got together. Some people say that, you know, they met when she was like 16 or 17. They officially, I think, said that they started dating when she was 19. Some people have speculated it was more like 18. It might have even been 17. So there's some speculation about that. But we know she was like hovering in the I've just become an adult age. And he was basically like 30. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to argue that, well, she's a legal adult. As long as she's a legal adult. Well, I mean, she wasn't if she was under 18, but if she was over 18, yes, she was a legal adult. However, I'm not a fan of age gap relationships in general, but particularly like the younger one person is in the relationship, the more concerned I am about the age gap relationships. Like 20 and 30 is a different age gap than somebody who's like 30 and 40, because the older that you are, the longer that you have been an adult and the more you've experienced life gives you a certain level of life experience and discernment. And when I say life experience, I'm not talking about sleeping around, because I feel like every time I talk about women having life experience, men are always like, oh, so you want a woman to sleep around. When I say life experience, I'm not talking about promiscuity. I'm just talking about like literally being in the world and seeing how the world operates. Because let's be real, most people, and granted I know Beyonce was performing and she was kind of touring and didn't necessarily have as much of a traditional life as, you know, your regular like high school girl or something like that. However, when you're under 18, you are somewhat sheltered in certain situations. You aren't an adult. And then when you become an adult, I know 18 is, you know, at least in America, is the age that we have kind of decided is a consenting adult, but you don't all of a sudden on your 18th birthday have something like in your brain snap and you're like, oh, I'm all of a sudden an adult now. I make good decisions with my life. Which is why when you have someone that is older and has had a lot of life experience, they're much better able to manipulate somebody younger, take advantage of somebody younger. And granted, it's much more common for an older man and a younger woman for this power dynamic to happen. Not saying that it can't happen in reverse, but you do see it more often with an older man taking advantage of a younger woman. This gets heightened with the power dynamic. Jay-Z was already someone pretty powerful in the music industry. That's not to say that Beyonce, she was already, you know, famous. She was already like a name, but, you know, Jay-Z was, you know, at a different level of fame and success than Beyonce was. Beyonce had been part of a group and she'd been managed by her father, which again is another level of sort of being protected because you have like your family around you and stuff. Jay-Z has been well known to have been a drug dealer on the streets. He's a hustler. I mean, he's talked about that. He's talked about being a hustler. And you go from that life of living on the streets and drug dealing, which is a criminal activity. You are literally hustling people. If you do that job and you stay out of jail, it's probably because you are a master at manipulation and things like that. And then you get into the entertainment business, in his case music, which is a hustler business. Let's be real. The entertainment business is like, you kind of have to know how to hustle. You have to know how to manipulate. You have to know how to use people in order to get to where you are. I mean, that's the way the entertainment industry works. So for somebody like that now at 30 to have that level of hustler mentality and manipulation, to now be involved with a girl, let's assume she was over 18, but she is a freshly minted adult who has had her career managed by her father, who comes from you know, I know her parents are divorced now. I don't really know exactly what her home life was like, but she came from like a, you know, a solid middle class home, you know, with a close-knit family. Now she's getting involved with this man who has a history of, I mean, he would not be a free man if he wasn't a hustler. I mean, he's lived more of life, and he's also lived more of life proving that he knows how to manipulate people. That's essentially what his job and careers have always been. Sometimes legal, sometimes not legal. So you already have not only a power dynamic, but you have a life experience difference in a dynamic. This is gonna sound kind of weird, but I'm gonna throw this out there. And I might be personalizing on this to some extent because, while I am not Jay-Z and Beyonce by any means, as far as money or fame or anything, I was in a relationship that was very similar to this, so I'm seeing a lot of parallels. I think that Beyonce is Jay-Z's Betty Draper. So if you're not familiar with Mad Men, I'll just give you kind of a brief overall summary. Highly recommend the show if you haven't seen it. Don Draper essentially is a man who was born into absolute complete poverty, and he ends up stealing the identity of Don Draper. He ends up stealing somebody's identity and making himself into this very high-powered, influential, wealthy, well-to-do ad executive on Madison Avenue. He marries Betty Draper, who is this very like Grace Kelly meets Betty Crocker kind of like image. The image of like the perfect housewife. Came from a good family with money and things like that. Like Betty Draper was the vision that Don Draper had of the perfect wife, because he was chasing this image of having this like perfect life and this perfect image that he was chasing because he didn't have that growing up. It wasn't so much that he really wanted to be with Betty, but Betty fit the image that he was trying to cultivate, which is why then Don Draper ends up running around with all kinds of different women, a lot of whom are women from kind of the wrong side of the tracks. They're edgier women, not perfect in some way, because he's got the wife that he keeps as this sort of like perfect image. Like people used to joke on their wedding day they were like the Barbie and Ken kind of thing, like they were the perfect image, but he actually is sexually attracted to the women who are imperfect, the women who are kind of from the wrong side of the track, so the women that have the edge or something like that. And Betty Draper was kind of the vision of what he thought his wife should be, but that wasn't the woman that he actually wanted. I really think that that's what's going on with Jay-Z and Beyonce. It's probably gonna piss off a lot of people, but I'm gonna say it. Beyonce is not Jay-Z's dream girl, which is ironic because she actually was a dream girl. But I don't say this to knock Beyonce in any way, shape, or form, because Beyonce is probably a lot of people's dream girl, but Beyonce's not Jay-Z's dream girl. But Beyonce fits the image of who Jay-Z thinks that someone at his level in music, as a major executive in music, should be with, because she is the queen. She is the queen-like energy. She is this regal queen-like wife that is by his side. But that's not the woman that he really wants, which is why we know he's cheated on her. I mean, there's been albums about it at this point. And we don't know specifically who he's cheated with, but my guess is he's probably cheating with women who are more his type, because Beyonce is not his type. She fits the image of who he thinks that a powerful music executive should be with, which is kind of the basis of Dreamgirls, if you really watch that movie, is that, you know, Beyonce's character fit the image that Jamie Foxx's character was like trying to emulate as far as who he thought he should be with at his level, and was basically cultivating and orchestrating her career. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if most of the moves that Beyonce is making in this business are completely curated by, or at least controlled, at least to a certain extent, by Jay-Z, because it has to fit his image of what the wife of someone at his level would act like. So it's all curated, but it's curated for what fits his image, but that it's not necessarily what he wants. This goes back to a real common dynamic that we have, and it's a big problem, and I have other videos talking about this. And there's a male version of it too, where we put men into different categories too, and I have a video talking about that, but I'm just going to talk about the female version right now of, it's basically like the Madonna whore dynamic. It's like the sort of virginal, pure, or queen-like wife, and then like the bad girl that the man has sex with. And the reality of the situation is, as women, we're not going to be happy being either one. We need to be both. No woman wants to be like just the pure virginal wife that the man doesn't have any sexual attraction to, or the woman that is just his sexual object. Most women want both. If you're somebody's wife, you're going to want your man to find you sexually desirable, but you're also going to want him to respect you as the wife. Most women want both. Whereas men, especially men in today's society, I think a lot of this is conditioning, have a really hard time seeing one woman as fitting both of those categories. They have too much of a blockage. Like, they can't see their wife as being the sexual being because she's, you know, she's the virginal good girl, or maybe she's the mother of the kids. Like, he can't see her as being the sexual being, whereas the mistress, he can see as the sexual being. He knows she's not going to be faithful, or she doesn't carry the image that he thinks he should have as a wife. So many men have this disconnect, which is why so many guys, I mean, they're watching porn, they're, you know, following all these girls on Instagram and, or, you know, OnlyFans or something, because they're sexually attracted to these women. When women are like, well, that's obviously who you're attracted to. Like, yeah, but we don't want to wife those women. It's like, okay, but no woman wants to be the wife of a man who doesn't see her as the sexy one. He sees somebody else as the sexy one. Like, women are never going to be satisfied with a man who is like, well, I'm just going to have you as a wife, but my sexual attraction is going to go somewhere else. As a woman, we're going to need a man to see us as both the wife and the sexual being. Like, we want both, and women are never going to be satisfied just being one or the other. And as women, all we can really do is embody that within ourselves, is be like, okay, I'm going to embody my queen like energy, and I'm also going to embody my, you know, my sensuality and my lover energy. And I have videos talking about the archetypes and stuff like that. But as women, all we can do is just embody all of those things that we want to be for ourselves. And if a man can't see us as more than just like one specific thing, maybe he's just the man for us. It's up to men to do that inner work on themselves, to be able to see a woman as being like the wife and the sexual partner. And if a man can't see a woman as being both, then that's something he needs to do. As women, we can't really change a man into thinking that way. Like, they have to do that work themselves. All we can do is embody that and own that we want to be in a relationship with a man who sees us as both wife and sexual partner, and not as just, you know, well, he'll wife us because we're the good girl, but then he's going to run around with the bad girls. And as women, all we have to do is just own that we're not going to accept someone who's not going to see us as both, you know, because as women, we're not going to be satisfied with someone who doesn't. There's a saying that I don't love because I don't love what it implies, but I do think that there's merit to it. There's a saying that says a man should treat his wife like his mistress and his mistress like his wife, and I don't love the fact that we're implying that a man has both a wife and a mistress. There is something to the idea that, like, the wife knows she's a wife, but she also wants to be sexually desired by her partner. The mistress knows she's a mistress, but she also wants the love and commitment, because women want both. Women need a partner that's going to give them both. Most women are not going to be satisfied with a guy who's like, well, I'll wife you, but I'm going to fantasize about these women sexually because you're not really who I'm attracted to sexually. I'll have sex with you, but it's really just an outlet while I'm thinking about these other women. No woman wants to sign up for that deal. That's not going to be satisfactory for most women. And most women who are mistresses or other women or anything in reality are hoping that that man is going to decide to be with them. And I'm not encouraging that behavior by any means, but I'm saying most women are not getting into this being like, oh, I hope he doesn't leave his wife for me. Like, they're thinking that they're hoping that it's going to become more, that they're going to be the chosen one, because women want to be both. And we don't always go about trying to be both in the healthiest way. But if a man is just going to put us in one category of the virgin or the whore, for most women, we're not going to be satisfied with a man that has to separate those two. Women are going to need a man who is seeing us as both. I know that was a tangent, but I really think that that's what's going on with Jay-Z and Beyonce, is that she is just the wife and the image. He is keeping other women on the side because those are the women he's actually sexually attracted to. And I know that's probably weird for some people because most people are just like, well, Beyonce is pretty damn sexy. I think it just goes to show you can be Beyonce. Like, you can be Beyonce and still have your man decide that that's not really what he wants. He wants something else. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with Beyonce at all, other than the fact that I think she got herself into a marriage that she probably doesn't really want to be in and isn't really happy. I don't see her as being happy in this marriage. And I mean, she was really young. She was really young when she got involved in the situation. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to say, well, why doesn't she just leave? Again, I don't know them. I don't know their personal situation. But when we're talking about people with this much money and this much power, I'm sure that their relationship is contractual. I know people didn't like when I talked about Taylor and Travis being a PR relationship. Beyonce and Jay-Z's marriage is all a PR relationship. Now, I don't know if they've ever had love for each other or or anything, if their relationship has ever had like a real element to it, I don't know. But their relationship absolutely 100% is a PR contracted relationship. Everything that they do is a PR contracted, very cultivated, curated for the media image. Everything in what they do is that. So this is a absolutely like contracted relationship, and we don't know what's involved in these contracts. I can guarantee you, like, yes, does Beyonce have, we actually don't even know if she has her own money, to be honest with you. We don't know how much control he has over her career and her life. We know Jay-Z has, at least in his past, been involved in criminal behavior. There's other aspects to whether or not a woman can safely, or a man or anybody, whether or not anyone can safely leave a relationship goes beyond just being in a financial situation to be able to be okay on your own. And especially when we're talking about this level of money and power, just leaving may not be as simple as just leaving. And I don't say that to ever discourage a woman if she is in a really like unhealthy, dangerous, abusive situation. I'm not saying that to discourage women to leave, but I think we need to be careful of not just saying, well, why don't they just leave the situation? Because that's not always the option for everybody. The reality of the situation is that, particularly for women, we are wired for safety and survival, so that if we're weighing the options of, is staying in a bad situation more or less dangerous than leaving the bad situation? And if for whatever reason, whether it's reality or whether it's just perception, if a woman views leaving a bad situation as being more dangerous or more life-threatening than staying, she will stay. That doesn't mean that she is approving of the relationship. It doesn't mean she deserves to be treated badly in a relationship. It simply means that she is wired for survival, whether it be her reality or her perception. If she believes that leaving that situation is more dangerous than staying in that situation, she will likely stay, even if it is a dangerous situation. I'm not saying that that's right, but I'm saying that that's a primal instinct in people. So when we get into the situation of like, well, she chose to get into the situation, or oh, she could leave if she wants to, we don't always know that that's true. And I think we have to be really careful of that. I'm not necessarily saying that that's what's going on in Beyonce and Jay-Z's situation. I don't really know. But we just have to be very careful of jumping to conclusions, because especially when we're talking about these big, high-powered celebrity relationships, I guarantee you there's more going on there than us as the public has any idea about. She may also be with him and, you know, be fully supporting what it is that he's doing and be completely fine with, you know, whatever bad behavior he might be a part of, because she feels like she benefits from it. And, you know, she may be a sprinkle, like, I don't care as long as I'm getting mine, and, you know, that's fine. She might be like that. I don't really know. I tend to think, especially in situations like Beyonce, where she was so young getting involved in this situation, I tend to think that probably she didn't necessarily go into this with her eyes wide open completely. But that said, like, I don't really know where her mindset is. I don't really know her. These are just my observations. And I would say that the vast majority of the time, when you are dealing with a woman who is very young and sort of like newly an adult, and you're dealing with a man who not only is older, but somebody who has been in careers and professions that are specifically based on manipulation and criminal activity and things like that, it's very easy for a woman to get into that situation not fully knowing what she's getting herself into, because she's actually dealing with someone who has lived life longer and been an adult longer and actually knows how to manipulate people. We kind of know too much and we don't know anything at all, and I think that that keeps people in a very unsettled place with her. And again, I don't know these people personally. This is just public perception, but I just want people to be aware that, like, what we are being shown is probably not really based in reality. And it's certainly not based in the reality of probably your personal life, because these are celebrity relationships that are carefully curated to show you a certain image, and we have to kind of take them with a grain of salt. And also, I would highly recommend you not look to celebrities as role models, because most of them are not good role models, and also not look to them to like emulate what they're doing in their relationships, because a lot of them are not actually in healthy relationships, even when we're kind of being sold that they're in like these good real relationships. So yeah, this was a highly requested video to talk about Beyonce and Jay-Z. If you have any other video suggestions, let me know. I'd love to hear your suggestions. Leave a comment in the comment section below. If you have any thoughts on this topic, also let me know. Leave a comment. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up, and be sure you subscribe to my channel channel. If you would like to connect to your dark feminine energy, I have the Dark Feminine Energy Guided Journal available now on Amazon. It'll be linked in the description box below, along with links to all my social media accounts. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.